This is Tony Reale here from NextWaveDV.com. We're doing our first ever podcast, and we're going to be doing like a little roundtable discussion here, so it'll be fun. I, as you guys know, head up NextWaveDV.com, and I've been doing video production for about 4 years now. Shoot on HDSLRs now. I used to shoot on depth of field adapters and HD and stuff like that. So that's a little of my background. Sean, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Sean Bowers. I'm pretty much on the backside of everything that Tony does. Pretty much
on the backside.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
He rides my
I'll
backside.
Stop with that comment. But pretty much, I do a lot of the post. I do grip work too, I guess. You know, I mean, just kind of all around. Do first AC. Do all the editing for the most part.
And you guys are going to be seeing more of Sean too. We're going to be working on a new series all about post-production soon.
Yep.
And so I'll be doing some of that, but Sean's going to kind of head up that mainly. So
yeah, I'll be hosting that. I'll be covering things like visual effects, also preparing your shots for visual effects and things like that, and also a lot of editing tips, mainly with the Adobe products.
Yep.
Since that's what we primarily use.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there for Final Cut, but we want to teach you about Adobe.
I don't.
Yeah, he's a Final Cut player.
Stupid.
I do. I like Adobe.
I'm the outcast here. Since when is Final Cut the outcast guy? I don't know.
It's the new age.
Yeah.
It is, I guess.
Keep with the times.
So
Right,
should I introduce myself? No?
What,
Yeah.
You want to talk? Fine, go talk.
All right. My name is Jared Hoyman, and I've been probably working with Tony, playing around with him since like 5 years.
Backside, I'm playing where
Why don't you scoot up a little bit? No, your chair.
No, I think it is scooted up. It's just
Okay.
I'm not like you. Anyways, I pretty much do like sketch comedy on the side, stuff like that. I help out with Tony also. So
Yep.
I dabble all around, mostly write.
Yep, he does mainly like directing, writing, acting, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, my name's Aaron Randerson. I work in video production full time. I mostly work on TV commercials and lots of commercial production kind of stuff, corporate videos, things of that nature. I do a lot of directing and a lot of post-production work as well. I work in Final Cut. Awesome. And yeah, and I do a fair amount of After Effects work as well as Sean
so
over there.
nice
So
if you could just drop After Effects into Final Cut.
yeah, it would be really nice.
What if there's only an NLE out there that you could just drop After Effects comps in? Oh wait, Premiere.
Premiere. Fail. Let's not get started down that road. We could spend a whole episode just arguing about which one's better. Really, I don't really think that Final Cut's better. It's just more that I know Final Cut really well at this
I'll
point.
give you
And
that.
so,
Not so much the tool, it's the user.
yeah, totally. And that's what I tell most people. You know, a cut's a cut and a fade's a fade. So if you, you know, that's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
Although some people, users are the tool.
although right here I feel a
There it
star
is.
wipe coming on because it's necessary.
We're gonna throw that in there. Yeah.
Star, white star, right.
Breaking glass, that's what I want. And it just came back to you.
And yeah, I do a fair amount of color correction work as well too. So
Yeah.
and I do that primarily in Apple's Color, but I do use the built-in just like three-way color corrector a lot of times in Final Cut, and sometimes I take it into After Effects to do it there. So I'm all over the place, but it's a variety. It's a good
I
time.
like doing my color correction in my NLE if possible. Like I'll do it in Premiere before I'll do it in After Effects, just because it saves a lot of time.
Yeah, me too.
You've already got your clips cut, and then you don't have to go and try and create adjustment layers, like a quadrillion adjustment layers to do that.
There's
If
some pretty
I'm,
good plugins for that, for color correction too.
Red Giant and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's where I like, if I'm gonna do all my color correcting to get everything where it belongs, kind of, and get all my levels where I would like them to be, all my blacks and just basic color correction, I definitely do all that right in Final Cut. But if I want to create a look, that's when I tend to go out of the NLE.
And if you've already balanced each of your scenes
Yeah,
out. So
yeah.
sometimes if you're working like multiple scenes, then it's easier to do it, in your editor. So.
Right.
All right, so we just got done shooting HDSLR 101, and I've said that so many times that I can't say it anymore. I thought it went pretty good. Appreciate you guys' help with that. We're probably going to end up showing this podcast well before the episodes are online, so just stay tuned for them to be airing very soon. So,
Yeah.
so what'd you guys think? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, it was informative. I didn't learn anything.
It was informative, but I didn't learn jack.
I'll have to watch it.
I have to watch.
Since we work a lot together, I usually pretty much learn right along with you, for the most part.
And I think I come from the world of doing this full time, so it's not so much that I learn anything, but I think you guys, when you get a chance to watch these episodes, are gonna gather a lot of information, especially if you're coming in from the beginning and kind of wondering what the differences are, what tools you're going to use, and what you need and what you don't need, because you certainly don't need to go all out and buy a huge rig and get every piece of expensive equipment and glass and all that kind of stuff.
You can save money and just buy a little bit at a time.
I think we should cut in here like some of your early stuff, you know, just to kind of give...
No.
You know, the point is like...
we have pictures.
Another person that like we follow sometimes in like his videos is Freddie W.
Yeah.
And you know, he also uses the same point. You know, use what you got at your disposal.
Yeah, but he was like 12 when he did those, and now he's whatever 20 something.
Right.
Like
He's
I
got a
did
lot
it
of
just
years
like
of
a couple years ago. I learned a lot in those couple years, but I want some more time behind my belt.
But yeah, just don't be discouraged by what level that someone else might be, what they're doing, because they have a long history of experience.
Yep.
Starting out with something, you know, just with a handheld camcorder that their family had, and just made use of the equipment that they had, the computer they had. So
That's
just
where
don't be
I started,
discouraged.
man. I had a Sony Hi8, and it was all kinds of awesome.
Yeah, I started doing weddings with the Sony Hi8 also, and I actually edited them on Windows Movie Maker.
Yes!
Using 2 camera feeds, trying to sync the audio from 2 camera feeds and the clips and everything, and oh my gosh, it was a disaster.
It was much harder then.
It was really hard. I pulled it off and it looked pretty decent, but I vowed to quit doing it until I got actual better equipment because it was very frustrating and it took a long time.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Yeah, so.
All right, so HDSLRs, we all either own one or work with them consistently. What do you guys think? Is it the perfect camera? Why is everybody using it?
No, it's definitely not the perfect camera, but it is an amazing camera, and the image quality that you can get out of it for the price point is the thing I go back to over and over again. Is for the money, it's pretty tough to beat the look that you can get in the film quality look and interchangeable lenses and the shallow depth of field. You're going to have a really hard time getting that same kind of look out of anything else in anywhere near that price range. However, if you're like a live event type of person, if you're doing a lot of weddings, things where you're on the move and you're not able to set up shots and you're just gonna do it as you go, I don't know that DSLR is gonna really be right for you. Plus, you're gonna have trouble with your audio. So if you're
unless you have a lot
stuff,
of,
unless you have,
do like multiple feeds,
right, and if you have enough money to buy like 10 of those, then
and enough time to edit.
Right.
Now, here's a question. HDSLRs are great for like independent filmmaking, little guys that just want to shoot something. The small time guys, just hobbyists. But commercial production companies, they're becoming really popular. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I mean, should every major commercial production company be shooting on red just because?
No, we get a lot of requests. I mean, especially in the economic times that we're in now. Even the big dogs are pinching their pennies, so they come in and they're looking for that same kind of red shoot. And of course, 5D, especially right now, is the hot item, if you will, kind of like red was maybe about 2 years ago. Everyone's like, we got to shoot on red, we got to shoot on red. Now everyone's like, can we shoot on this 5D thing? Because I heard we can save a bunch of money. But which is true to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily that it's significantly better, or it's you know, it's on the same page, but again, it's budget factor plays a lot of it. So we do a lot of studio work and we shoot on it, and it has its limitations in that world.
Well, now, okay, if you've got say a $20,000 camera like the Red,
yep,
and then you've got like a $3,000 with some gear, maybe $5,000 camera with the 5D, but now you still got lighting, you still got sound, you still got all of your positions. Is the budget a lot lower on a 5D shoot than it is on a Red?
It's still definitely a lot lower, because the biggest thing is you come into the camera rental. So if you're going to rent a 5D, I don't even know what a 5D rental is for the day. It's probably like $200 maybe, if that. So you're looking at a couple grand for a day on a Red shoot. So plus, not only that, you got to have a Red tech. So you got to have a guy who's there just to manage the camera because there's so much that can go wrong with it, as I've experienced hands-on. And so, you know, in reboot times and all those little finicky things. Now there are things that Red can do that 5D can't, don't get me wrong, but that's I think one of the biggest factors. So if you got a shoot that you're going over across a, you know, even a 4-day shoot or something like that, or a week-long 5-day shoot, and you're looking at $2,000 a day for a camera, or $200 or $150 to rent a 5D, or if you wanted to, you could rent 10 5Ds for the same price. You know,
yeah.
you start weighing those options out, and I think that still makes a big difference. And obviously, like you said, you still need everything else in order to accomplish great images and great footage. It's not just about the camera you're using; it's about everything. It's about having great lighting. It's about having, you know, great acting. It's about having good setups. It's about all that stuff. A great audio, and then great post, of course. So it's not just about having a camera and going, oh, if I have a 5D, now I'm going to be able to shoot like I see in the movies. You're going to get a 5D until you understand, you know, more of the world, and particularly in lighting. I think you're going to realize, I still doesn't look quite like that. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
True.
We agree.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just say, I mean, I don't have a lot of shooting experience with the 5D. You know, I've been mainly working with you. I do a lot of the editing, the workflow with the 5D. But just from the research that I've done through it too, just because I know we usually have to deal with the rolling shutter or the jello cam, trying to figure out ways to prevent that. You know, it's not just an exclusive problem to the 5D. I know that it gets a lot of rap, but it's a problem with every camera because of the way the sensor captures footage. You know, depending on the sensor, you're going to get jello cam. You do fast moves. With, you know, a lot of equipment, even around that price range, even, you know, in the 10,000 price range, depending on how you use the camera.
Yep.
You know, that's why, you know, with between the 5D, 7D, and stuff, they each have their own capabilities. Every camera has its own capabilities, pluses and minuses. So, you know, it's like, I don't really know where I was going with that. I'm done. Wow.
And Jared,
Bye,
you do a lot of comedy stuff, and comedies are known to overlight, to not be as cinematic, so to speak, and just be focused on the narrative. Is an HDSLR a good tool for you, or do you still find yourself sticking with the old style, or not old, but, you know, like HDV using tapes?
Yeah, it really depends on the look you're going, and you can find comedy in anything. So one small little look could change if it's funny or not. So yeah, definitely you can look at a DSLR and you can go with that shallow depth of field, and maybe it's focused on something just right that we want to bring focus to that maybe other audience members wouldn't see, but you want to take the focus completely away from maybe a main point. So you're looking at a far corner.
But then typically that would be more scripted comedy, right? And typically, because you're trying to do improv, it's hard to script stuff like that.
You can do improv based around one small scripted spot. So if everybody in the scene is aware of this one scripted spot, you can improv around it as long as they come back around. But that you're going to want to rehearse, and then rehearse, I guess. Definitely stress the 2-syllable there. Rehearse. Rehearse.
You get a
so obviously you want to rehearse, but you can improv around and then have the one thing just scripted. And that'd be the only time where you'd really want to use the DSLR, unless I guess you just take away you just push up the f-stop, I guess, and as long as it's blown out. But then what's the difference?
Normal, yeah, video camera.
But that's, you know, in case it's a cheap way to go if you just need a second pair of eyes too. You have your main camera, and then if you wanted to be blown out, so you have like a good wide angle.
And you know, that's a good point. Like if you take a camera like the HV20, and that's what we're kind of using as our B camera, and then here we're using an EX1. You know, video cameras, the EX1 probably has more latitude than the HV20, but if you're trying to work with a T2i or you know, even the T2i for $1,000, if you were to equivalent that to like the HV20 when it first came out, or some of those other cameras, you're going to notice that the T2i and especially the other HDSLRs are going to have better latitude, and we talked about that in HDSLR 101 about how a normal HDSLR has probably a latitude around 10 to 11 stops, where film's around 13 plus, and video cameras are around 6 to 8 stops. So you get a lot more latitude, more of a filmic look, even when you're spending under $1,000 for a video camera. And that can change the aesthetic of what you're shooting.
And you can also do, for live events or situations like you're talking about with the comedy and things like that, a setup that we've done before is to combine the two worlds, so you have something that is like the EX1, or something that you can get for much less money than that if you want. If you just need some kind of point and shoot camera, something that you can roll top to bottom, autofocus, all that kind of stuff, and then you supplement with some kind of HDSLR that you can, shoot just the creative shots that you want to get.
That's a good point. Like I was watching on Freddie W's channel again. They did with some other guys, they did a Call of Duty Modern Warfare video, really awesome. And he did the sound design for that. Really good. Yep, and they did a combination of 70 and HVX 200 shots. So the HVX 200 was kind of their running around crazy action shots, and then the 70 was kind of their beauty shots, so the close-ups and stuff like that. And that's a good combination right there, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you and I were talking the other day about, like, some people say, well, let me slap a depth of field adapter on my EX1, and then I'm going to shoot with, my Zeiss glass or whatever on the front of my EX1, and then I'm going to mix that with my 5D footage. And in my experience from doing a little bit of research, and I wrote an article about this a little while back, that I felt that when you put a depth of field adapter on a camera, the bokeh or the out of focus area becomes like just like a Gaussian blur almost. Whereas on the 5D, when you're going direct to sensor, no ground glass filament, you're getting the ringlets and all the dynamic look that each bokeh creates from the camera. And to me, the bokeh is a determining factor of trying to mix the depth of field footage with 5D footage. Also, we feel that the depth of field footage is a little softer too, because you can't get as sharp. So, have you ever tried mixing the two together?
I've definitely tried to mix the two together, and I don't recommend it. If you're going to shoot something with like an EX1 and then mix it with a 7D, you should shoot the EX1 without the adapter, because when you get that rotating ground glass in there that you get from the adapter itself, it actually, although when you look at it on your monitor out in the field or something, you probably won't notice it too much, but when you get it back in post, you'll definitely notice there's just a little bit of grain there, and it doesn't look as sharp or as clean as it will on the 7D. Now, or 5D, you might be able to adjust that if you add a Pro Mist filter or something like that to your 5D or 7D footage, or in post if you want to do something to it then to give it a little bit of a treatment. But as a whole, the best way to match them up is to actually shoot your EX1 or EX3 or whatever it's going to be without any kind of adapter. And then if you need those depth of field shots, to do those on your 5D or your 7D. We had a shoot not too long ago where we combined, we needed to do some really low light stuff, which we just did available light in a downtown street area. So we shot all that on 5D so that we could just go with available light at night in the rain, and it looked incredible. But we needed to be able to combine that with some stuff we're going to do later that was going to be all green screen post. For lots of reasons, we didn't want to do the green screen on the 5D. One being how much it compresses the actual files. There's not much data there to pull that green back out. So we wanted to shoot that on the EX1. So that's a good example where we blended the two cameras, and we shot the green screen on the EX1, and then we shot all the night stuff and some theater stuff, and we shot all that on the 5D. And that was worked out really well to take those two files. Now, again, I took those two formats and then we batch process them through together so that they're all ProRes files, so that it makes it much easier to work with on the timeline and stuff like that for later on. But yeah, that's a good example of using the two.
When you're color correcting, do you find that transcoding helps you have more?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps you have more. I mean, well, for those of you who are Final Cut users versus Premiere Pro users, Premiere allows you to, which I like personally, actually, it allows you to throw almost anything at the timeline and still play back. If you're using Final Cut, you know that you don't want to do that, because anything you throw at it that is outside the codec that your timeline base is, you're going to get that sweet red bar that says render, and your frame's not going to show up, and you're going to have to render every time you go anywhere near that piece of footage. So anytime you're working in Final Cut, I highly, highly recommend that you take whatever footage it is, if it's not all shot on one camera, and find a way to make it all one codec. And in Final Cut world, that codec is almost always ProRes, whether it be ProRes HQ, ProRes LT, which is light, or just regular ProRes. But point of that being, I find it always beneficial to, in a Final Cut world, to batch process everything into a universal format if it's not already from the same codec. So in my case, I always batch it through to ProRes.
And before CS5, I used to use Cineform in order to transcode to a more editable format. Now Sean's editor, he beefed up his PC so that in CS4 you could still edit it.
I'm still able to do it raw, so it was pretty nice.
But CS5 is wonderful in allowing to, but again, that's the advantage with Cineform is we did have more latitude. It kind of repaired some of the files to allow us to be able to do more color correction. Now that said, sometimes I wasn't doing color correction or doing that much of color correction, so it didn't really matter. And oftentimes I find myself, for the average shoot, I'm doing minimal color correction that I don't need to transcode it. So when I'm shooting just a normal shoot, I can just drop the footage into Premiere and be able to start editing.
I'm just curious, what is the color spacing on the EX1? Do you know what it is? Is it 422?
I don't know if it's 422 or not. I'm not 100%.
I'm just curious.
Because when we did that, and actually that's a good question, but what we did to give us even more is we used the HDSLR out, and then we recorded to a Keypro.
Okay.
And we recorded.
HDSI, it's going to give you 444 then, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So then we recorded right onto the Keypro in the native ProRes. So we didn't use the 35 megabit per second compression that the EX1 does.
I've never worked with that. I mean, how does that work with green screen? Just amazing?
It's awesome. I mean, and the Keypro, I feel like I'm doing an AGA commercial now, but the Keypro is awesome for those of you in Final Cut world because you just record to this thing, and, it's a hard drive base, and you just take that and you dump it in. It's already in ProRes. You don't have to touch anything, and you keep the full 422 or 444, whatever you end up recording at right there. So it's, the color spacing in that it's pretty much as good as you're gonna get for pulling a key. I mean, I'm sure there's really high-end stuff out there that you might be able to do that's better, but it's pretty tough to beat.
Sweet.
Now, I shoot primarily 5D now. Sean shoots on the HV20, just if he's not using my 5D.
I get his hand-me-downs.
Used to use the HV20. But oftentimes like we'll be shooting on 5D or stuff like that. You shoot on XHA1 primarily, and I'm sure you're still loving that, right?
Yeah, still love it. Getting used to the T2i.
Yeah. Now what, primarily, I mean, you own your 7D, but when you're at work, do you find that you're using the 5D mainly, or the EX1 still?
No, the EX1 still primary because we do a lot of commercial stuff, corporate stuff, and it's just practical to set it up, especially when you're going to go multiple microphones usually right away. When you're going out on location, you go, okay, we're going to set up, and you're going to keep the crew to a minimum. You can run a shotgun right into it, and then you run a lav mic right into it and just get set up and get going. Now, we just did a project for United Way recently, and that was a much more narrative style, more of almost like a mini movie, if you will, because we were retelling these stories of these people, and we wanted that to be very dramatic, so we shot that entire thing on 5D for that very purpose, because we wanted to have that dramatic look. We didn't want to have more of a news story journalism look, if you will. So that's kind of the two worlds, but I would say it's come a ways, and it kind of splits 50-50. We do also shoot on the EX1 with PS Technique 35mm adapter, and we shoot with that quite a bit with prime lenses as well. So it's a mishmash, I'd say, but it still leans towards the.
If you had your choice, to work with EX1 or 5D footage with depth of field adapters and everything like what do you think you like the look of the most?
That's a tough call, but I would say once you get into post, as long as it's really well shot, it almost doesn't matter. To me, it's the huge advantages of the 5D is you can, with the adapter, you lose 2 full stops. So that's mega. So for low light situations.
The native ISO of the camera too.
Right.
So like we thought the HVX200 is around 600 ISO, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what the EX1 is. It's probably somewhere around there, maybe a little more light sensitive. So you have your native ISO, so you can't bump that up without hitting gain and grain. And so now you're dropping that down. So now you're saying that your ISO sensitivity natively is around like 200.
right? So when you, obviously when you lose those 2 full stops right out of the gates, you got to look at, okay, what's our lighting situation gonna be?
Yep.
I mean, are we dealing with mostly available, or are we gonna be, you know, lighting the whole setup ourselves? So that's one of the first things that we look at. We also look at space. That was, as most people know, is the small form factor. The 5D, 7D is another one of its huge advantages. So when you go into a smaller environment, again, bring up the United Way thing, we had one that was a smaller, like classroom kind of space. We don't need a huge space to get this camera into. I mean, it's only like this big. So you get that thing on sticks in the corner or whatever, it doesn't take up much room to set that up. But so when it really boils down to it, I wouldn't say one native footage coming in looks significantly better than the other. I would say when you get to that point that you're nitpicking between an EX1 in particular and a 5D, most likely there are other problems that are going to be more obvious to you much earlier. Like as far as going, okay, if I had the same DP and the same gaffer on a shoot for that, and I give them an EX1 and a 5D, and say, you know, which one's going to come back to me with better footage, they're both.
Okay, but now like I've been to your shop, I've been to your production house, and I've seen rows of 2Ks and 5Ks just sitting there, and I've drooled.
Yes.
And I go home and I see my 1 2K sitting in the corner, and then my 650s and my 1Ks, and I say, you know, okay, for me the 5D is a better option because I can use my lighting more efficiently. And if you, would you say in the same situation, if you didn't have that massive arsenal of lighting that you have, that the 5D would be more of a go-to camera?
Probably. I mean, and that's why I say it depends on the situation. I mean, when you're dealing with mostly available light, and let's say, for me, when I do stuff on my own, just for fun or whatever, I would say 90% of the time I don't even bring a light along. I try to shoot it outside or inside available light, and I bring a reflector and use the reflector for whatever, some kind of fill, or and so using just a reflector and just available light and a 7D or 5D or T2I, whatever, you can get some pretty incredible footage that I think you couldn't get probably on the EX1. And then you go back to, why couldn't you get that on the EX1? Well, you could, but you're gonna have to put the adapter on there to be able to get the lens on there. Now you're down 2 stops, and so unless it's really bright where you are, you're gonna be in trouble. It just allows for a whole world of opportunity when you have a camera that you can put a lens on there and open it all the way up to 1.8 or 1.2 or whatever your lens is. That's where it's pretty amazing, and then the footage that you get out of that is crazy. But again, then you go, if I need to do audio for that particular shoot and it's just me, that's where it can get a little trickier, because you got your zoom in your pocket, or you're trying to mount it to your rig, and you're trying to watch your zoom, and you're trying to look at your monitor, and you're trying to direct, and you're shooting at the same time, and hold the reflector over here. That's where it gets really. That's where sometimes the EX1's nice, because everything's just like everything's right there.
And stuff.
Yeah.
You start missing things when you try to keep track of all that.
Man,
and when you do comedy, you definitely need to have everything available to you.
Yeah.
Just need to right on the fly.
Yeah, because you need autofocus.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I mean, especially if you don't have a crew.
Yeah.
Like if you practically have to have autofocus in comedy.
Yeah.
Because you could have when we shoot an HDSLR 101, we try to goof around a little bit, and there are some times where I did something stupid and it was funny, and we decided to keep it. And if I tried to redo it, it just wasn't funny again. And that's the same way with comedy all the time. And so you have to, if you don't get the first time, which is again why they have a tendency, from what I've seen, to overlight comedy, to not be as cinematic. I mean, that's fine. You don't watch comedy to experience beautiful cinema. You just experience it to laugh.
Right.
I don't own.
Nobody wants beautiful cinema.
I don't own any comedies on Blu-ray that I'm aware of.
Right.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
I'm fine getting them on DVD. But if I'm watching, a great action film or drama or something like that, that's where I'm very happy to invest in the Blu-ray and get to enjoy it to its full extent.
Last Action Hero, that was a great comedy.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Has a lot of action.
And a hero.
Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sean,
Yeah.
talk for a bit.
Wow.
He's been talking all the time.
I know.
Take over.
Take over. That's I don't really know what I want to talk about.
We'll do a post-production podcast sometime, and then
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you
definitely.
guys
You and I
talk,
can
and
just
I'll just
have
be
at
like,
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean, using the HV20 obviously is, you know, it's not necessarily the best camera in the world, but it does offer lots of options. You know, it was one of the first to offer 24p and have a great image.
It does have a great image. I'm impressed continually when I'm at doing a live event or doing a shoot. As long as you set it up right for your lighting, you know, it looks
as long
great.
as you have enough light. Yeah, I think
the
that's
lighting
key.
is a big thing. Usually I'm outdoor, doing a lot of outdoor shooting.
Yeah, and obviously we talk about the latitude not being as high, and so you kind of have to light within a more limited area. But I find that the HV20, you know, you don't clip your blacks, you don't blow out your whites, you light within that area, you give it enough light, it can really sing.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing it lacks obviously is the manual control. It's
True.
It can be a little frustrating a little bit, but there are workarounds with it. I'm usually able to accomplish what I want with it.
And I think what I wanted to bring up was like somebody's looking, I want to get a video camera, and I have a DSLR, and I just want to get a video camera. I almost would suggest, you know, if you only want to spend a little bit of money, get an HV20 and not have to worry too much.
Right.
Yeah, the T2i is nice, but you got to worry about manual focus. You know, and you know, unless you get something like a Kodak ZI-8 or something, a really small recorder that you just want something basic or whatever, I would say the HV20 is still a competitor, still a good option.
Yeah, I mean, even kind of sometimes when setting up shots, I'm able to get halfway decent depth of field out of it, depending on the shot.
You telephoto.
By setting it up, yep, and by using telephoto, opening it, the aperture wide open, you know, setting certain objects a lot closer, you know, than what you're going to be, what your focus point is, you know.
That's pretty much how I found about the XHA1. I found I could do the shallow depth of field, which we did a video a while back that hasn't really been officially out, but which I needed that shallow depth of field to get that look that everything's even, and I had you like 50 feet, 60 feet.
Right,
back.
it was quite a
yeah.
It was quite.
But I mean, the lighting was great. The picture quality was great. It's just obviously you have to.
There's some tricks. There's tricks. There's workarounds to it. It's not a perfect system. You can accomplish it. I mean,
if you have time, you have patience. It's
after getting used to the 5D, I really am getting used to that 10-11 stop range though, because like I go over to the back of the HV20 or the XHA1 or something like that. I'm like, why are you blowing out? Why am I? What's the heck? I'm like, I should have a little more range to work with, and I'm getting spoiled by that. And it's not even, the depth of field's great, but I'm starting to get used to that latitude.
The ND filter definitely helps though with the XHA1. I know you blow out, but you could blow out and then. I mean, you got to get lucky with the light sometimes, but I feel like the ND filter definitely outside works where, and I haven't played enough with the T2i to know what I'm missing, but I think
that's where you're going to want to get like a separate ND filter for that, because obviously it doesn't come with one.
Right.
But yeah, well.
Well, yeah, that's an example. I mean, they used to be your HV20, and you utilized it with a lens adapter kit to use 35 millimeters.
Or the Cinovate, the Brevis 35, my first depth of field rig, which I actually had a HV30, one of the first HV30s to come out. I was one of the first people to have it and play around with it and review it. And then I hooked up, and for some reason there seemed to be an issue with the HV30 line. Certain cameras, the lenses would like vibrate when you attach a depth of field adapter to it. So you had it oscillating and it vibrates, and then I was getting blurry images all the time, and I'm like, what the heck? And I sent the Brevis to Cinovate, and I was just going ballistically nuts because I didn't know what the heck. I was just starting off figuring out how depth of field adapters work, and my very first rig did not work. As I'm like reading forums, and that's probably why I got so educated, is because I read everything. I'm like, why isn't this working? Focus charts, nothing is working. I'm using on location on my 24-inch monitor, and it's not working. And finally I got an HV20 and it worked. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I never touched an HV30 again, but yeah, I found that it was great. But again, you've already got so much to work with. Doesn't have great low light performance on the HV20, and then you're losing your stops with the depth of field adapter. So I was finding like I need to spend a ton of money on lighting just to get something halfway decent. And yeah, I mean, I love lighting. I'm a DP. I love lighting, but I like having the ability to, if I wanted to, I could light a scene artistically with a 100-watt bulb and just sculpt it. And I could do that, and you know, like I was just reading about Kino Flows are coming out with these 100-watt practical, 100-watt equivalent. They're like 20-watt bulbs, 100-watt equivalent, practical lights that are color balanced. They're going to have a, you know, the little spiral fluorescent bulbs.
Compact fluorescents.
Yeah, compact. Yeah, they're going to have one that's, you know, 3,200 Kelvin, one that's 5,600 Kelvin. So you get your daylight and your tungsten bounce for 14 bucks. So Kino Flow, you know,
Throw those on your lamps in the scene and everything, and you don't have to really worry
heck,
about
you can
them.
throw it into an umbrella light, and you could light with a 5D. You know,
How long do those last?
80,000 hours or something.
Yeah,
That's
quite
it?
a
Oh.
I'm not using one of those.
Jeez
Yeah,
Louise.
you
One
last longer
shoot
than
to
that.
be done.
200,000 hours. That's what I'm looking for.
All right, we got to spend 50 bucks. So it's 4 times the price. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? All right, well, I think we had a good conversation.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It was all right.
Hopefully you guys aren't too bored.
Was it good for you?
It was good for me.
I was done a while ago.
I'm still left wanting.
All
All
right.
right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Again, you know, check out our website for more training resources, nextwavedv.com. And we'll go ahead and link to some of your guys' stuff in the info section of this video right down here. And we'll try and do this again.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys gonna come back?
Sure.
You
Yeah.
live about 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
Will you drive?
40 minutes.
To just have a
Maybe I'll
conversation?
Skype in.
We could just Skype him. We'll put some guy there, and we'll just put his face over it. You know.
I want to do like
Skype
the
it.
Conan O'Brien thing where they have like a monkey or something. They just cut out the mouth.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
I like
That'd be
that.
great.
We should do that. We'll have Jared speak for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for myself.
Stuff about Final Cut.
Final Cut is so great. I like Final Cut. Last cut.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.